Hi, welcome to the Deep Focus Show. I'm Taavi,
I'm Clayton.
And I'm Aidan.
and we are on the third episode of the Spielbergathon, where we're now looking at the 1975 film Jaws. First question I'm gonna ask you guys, what's your familiarity to Jaws?
For me, I saw Jaws, I think, for the first time maybe a couple years ago. And I've seen it again since more recently. But yeah, it was kind of one of the later ones I'd seen. I didn't really have like the childhood experience with it. Like I know a lot of people did, like I did with some like Indiana Jones or Jurassic Park. It's a Spielberg movie I had heard about, but I didn't watch until more recently. But I guess kind of experience with it, but not where it's like something I've known forever.
Yeah, I agree. And to that note, I'm more of the nostalgic bait for Jurassic Park. I have a really close relationship to those series, but whenever it comes to Jaws, I really didn't know much about it. You know, I knew there was a shark attack, and it made a splash at the box office, and I knew that it's really influential in future creature features. But that's about it. And members of my family really love this movie. Like that's if they talk about a classic movie, that's all they talk about. And they're not much movie people. So I think it's just a testament to how strong this movie is, and it being made in 1975. And people are still talking about it.
I've seen this, I don't know how many years ago, actually, 5 years ago, the first time. And now watching for this, it was probably my third viewing of the Jaws film. And yeah, I also think like when you're talking blockbusters, like Jaws is one of these that comes to mind to a lot of people, and perhaps for a reason.
So, what inspired you to watch this film, Taavi? Is it like Spielberg's name, notwithstanding? What kind of grabbed you about this?
I don't know, perhaps it just was the name behind it, and obviously you know the theme and Joe Williams' theme about it, and I was probably getting into some Spielberg films at the time, and this is considered a classic, so decided to watch it.
So this put Steven Spielberg on the map. Did this also put John Williams on the map?
I think so, yeah. I think this was his first big hit. Even though he started, I think his earliest film scoring credits are like in the 1950s or something. But this was, one of the films that made him a huge name to the point where, he is John Williams,
Yeah, I would agree. This is probably the first, like a huge Joe Williams score. So, Jaws. We are now getting into Jaws, and yeah, it's three guys hunting a great white shark, and how it affects the town and town locals and basically them also. And another simple story in this one, in a way. A lot of good time. Again, I just think it's fun, exciting, but also it kind of works as a horror film, even watching it in 2022. Why it works, I think, are the kind of simple characters behind the film, and how all those three main characters which are Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss, are like playing off each other, and they have their own distinct styles of working and thinking, and they're in a way easy to relate to, and I absolutely love perhaps the first hour, like it starts with the scene of like the girl is going swimming, and it really starts from the get-go, like something is attacking her underwater, and you basically go from there. You know what you're getting into at the first moment forward, and it's so exciting to see how they're handling like Roy Scheider's Chief Brody is in charge of the safety of this town, but also has to like listen to the mayor and obviously, and it's not an easy placement for him to be because obviously if there's a shark attacks, but for example the mayor trying to hide it all the time, and obviously some are really sad there's not going to be beach, and some are like, yeah, the beach should be closed for a while at least. And it's interesting to see how everyone reacts to this event. And in the beginning there's like a scene of where everyone is swimming. Some of them knows, like the chief knows, that there might have been a shark attack, like the first scene, and then suddenly something is happening, and it's just like everyone is freaking out, and like the camera is like doing a close up on his film, and you see like one of the children that are swimming, like we actually see like a blood and all, and it's I think it's a surprisingly shocking scene. While there's lots of going on in that scene, but just seeing that happening is obviously kind of shocking, and it kind of has stayed with me since like the first viewing of the film. And obviously like the John Williams score is really bringing up the tension in that scene also. But yeah, perhaps some of you are going to disagree with this a little, but
Oh yeah?
high score, but I don't. There's something about which I don't know how to say it really, but there's something about the like more second hour that doesn't excite me as much as the first hour. Getting to know these characters and seeing all the stuff happening and how Roy's Chief Brody is becoming quite obsessive about this shark, and
I'm actually
and
the
all
opposite.
that. Yeah. But and also like you can't like see the shark. I think that was also a cool aspect of the film. Like you can see it most of the time, and it's sometimes just the camera following as the shark is going to attack, and the iconic theme is playing and started to get louder and louder. And I obviously like the second hour too, but I don't know. There's something about the first hour that we're getting to know this and seeing all the attacks, and I find it a little bit exciting. But I don't know. Perhaps the shark doesn't look as good when we're seeing like it happening like in the end when we really see the shark. Like it perhaps loses a bit when we actually see the shark. I don't know even how to really say it, but yeah, obviously it's a great film still. There's some things which probably drag a little bit for me in the second hour. Obviously it has the great line of like we're gonna need a bigger boat. Like that's just so great to hear all these times again. And yeah, I'm giving it a 4.5. I started to even sound like a little like I'm not, in my head at least, that I'm not giving it that high of a score, but it's also 4.5. It's a good time, and this is a blockbuster, so to me it kind of has to be a great time to. I'm all about the fun, basically.
Oh yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
I figured you'd go higher on this. But no, what everything you said made sense.
Yeah, like I'm really like struggling to like trying to think of even some reasons why I'm not giving it 4.5, but and it's kind of harder for me because in a way we can't compare to the later stuff, and I'm in a way used to that mentality of working like
Comparing it
because
overall, the filmography,
yeah, and yeah, it's not definitely my favorite Spielberg, but in a way I guess I can't really say it because we are technically in 1975, but yeah, it's a tough one. I don't know.
yeah.
Everybody's thought process is different because, like, for me personally, I try to, even if I'm listening to music or anything, I want to go in chronological order so I can understand where the director, in this case, his vision was at the time. What is he improving upon from his previous work? But yeah,
Well, it also makes
Yeah.
sense on a level because if you're like trying to act as the audience, you know, when if you had been alive during like the 70s, you would have seen the films like in order as they came out. So I mean, it makes sense.
yeah.
Like you're just kind of naturally replicating how the films were originally consumed. But yeah.
Obviously, it's a recommended film for me, and like
Of course, if you have a movie, and I'm going to talk about this later, but if you have a movie like Jaws, where especially like everything from, especially the score, it's so memorable. Like you've heard it before, you know you have, and you got to wonder, is that tension still there? But yeah, I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I can get
yeah,
into my
yeah,
review now. I honestly like I don't have a ton to say because I think the film speaks for itself on so many levels. I think it's just like it's one of those movies that I think is absolutely perfect from start to finish. Like there's nothing I could really recommend to change. But I kind of disagree with what Taavi said. My favorite parts of the film are definitely in the second half when it's more confined to the boat because I think it adds a lot more tension to the scene. I think that's really great. I think all the acting is amazing, especially Robert Shaw. I think gives the best performance in this. Um, Spielberg is obviously a pro at directing, and here he really gets a chance to show that off. It's very much stylistically reminiscent of like an Alfred Hitchcock film. He even takes the classic vertigo dolly zoom shot in one scene. But it's so unique, like from front to back. There's a quote by Tarantino that I think is interesting where he said, like, you can make a better film than Jaws, but you can't make a better movie than Jaws. And I think that's an interesting way to look at it. I kind of get it. Like it's Jaws is like the perfect action adventure summer blockbuster, exciting, builds to a finish is great. Like it's just perfect all the way through for me. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. That was probably apparent in my review, but I think this is one of Spielberg's best films. Don't know if it would be my absolute top, but it would certainly be very close to that. Yeah, I love it. And it absolutely changed the game. You know, it's the highest grossing film of all time. Kind of set the stage for summer blockbusters. And it kind of, you know, maybe that effect was for the worst, but you know, I can't judge the movie for that. It's a perfect movie, 5 out of 5.
It's sad to think about that, like the effect this movie had on franchises, and I guess I'm not that far into the future yet. I'm still in 1975. I'm really committed to this bit. I want to not think about what influenced it or what influenced later in the future. I'm trying to stay present. That's my goal right now. But I liked a lot what you had to say about it, Tavi. It's not necessarily a horror movie, but you're right. It hones into the elements of what makes a horror movie so great. And I've said this before. I think in our introduction episode, I really like horror movies. They're If you've noticed, we each pick a director to do on this podcast, and I'm pretty much the horror aficionado here.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm the A24 lover, and this is a blockbuster movie. This is the complete opposite of A24, so maybe I shouldn't go there. But on that note, this mixes horror with thriller, and I think any successful thriller has to have an element of terror in it. And I like what you were saying again, Taavi, that you don't see the shark at first, especially in the first half. It leaves everything up to your interpretation. But I actually don't mind that you see more of the shark in the second half. Um, I think obviously he made Duel, and I think honestly he's learning a lot from that 2.5 star movie. But there are two different use of jump scares here. I remember there was one underwater, and both of these jump scares are so different from each other. One scene where he's I believe it's Hooper. He's underwater looking at the ship wreckage, and then that body appears on screen. Never mind how good that makeup is, but wow, that's like that takes you out of your seat, and it's abrasive, and I love it. But there's another subtle jump scare right before our lead Martin says that you're going to need a bigger boat. He's throwing like gunk into the water, and then you like slowly see the shark just kind of creep up out of the water. And wow, I love that. That was I good use of jump scares. Two different ways of using jump scares. There's a scene when kind of things start to go awry on the boat, and a small fire starts. But it's no big deal. Robert Shaw's character just tells him to put out the fire, and it made me immediately think of the flammable truck that's in Dune. I'm not sure if that's like intentional or not, but in my mind, it was Spielberg just winking at me. But there was no explosion in that movie at that point. I was thinking, wow, good thing the boat's not flammable. But I'm wrong. Well, I mean, the boat does sink. However, nearing later, at that point, you kind of think the threat of flammability is there. And I don't know why I kept thinking about the flammable truck Duel, but I did. Eventually, the way the shark comes to his demise, he blows up in a flammable object. Like, the chief blows up the fucking shark. There's an explosion. I think this is Spielberg telling us that he was wrong in the movie Duel, and he wishes that that movie had an explosion at the end, and he agreed with the studio. But odds are he probably didn't. And maybe this is just his kind of nod to the audience, saying that he knows what he's doing. Let's trust his judgment. I don't know. I guess in hindsight, I do appreciate Duel a little bit more. I'm not going to raise my score, but it just made me think about that. I think it's the score here, like you were saying, like both of you were saying, it's incredibly iconic and kind of speaks volume that a score that everyone should know and that is so common to the general masses. Still, with that score, it still enhances this film on a first watch, which is what I did. This is my first watch, and the characters, like, it really, the score helps in building the suspense and the tension. But the characters here, they're also so dynamic. I feel like each character kind of draws to a central theme in their actions and are kind of interlinked to the story as a whole. In fact, I think the fact that this movie focuses so much on the characters really bring this creature to life and shows that it's a territorial force of nature, a concept that divides us as humans and doesn't separate us so much from the animal world. I think that's what separates, again, this movie from Duel. It's man versus nature. The shark being nature, and not a man-made invention like a truck. But in a way, it's also man versus man. I think as the lines sort of begin to blur in the human element of the shark, like this is kind of reflected whenever the shark makes the decision in the second half, which is why I love the second half so much. You really get to know more about these characters. But this is sort of reflected whenever the shark is chasing the boat and makes that conscious decision. Many man-made wars today are over territories. Tactics in wars have evolved into newer ethically challenging tools such as the use of drones. I think the character of Hooper sort of reflects the changing ways, and Quint sort of represents the old ways. And I feel like there's sort of a theme of like war here being a thing of nature, and I feel like that's reflected in Quint's monologue about the USS Indianapolis. I think war is a natural thing. I think Martin kind of represents humanity, though. That's just my philosophical belief. I do believe there's goodness in humanity, and the lines between nature and man sort of get blurred. But I don't believe war is a man-made concept. I think it's a conflict of nature, and I think Martin really does a good job at exploring more of the humanity to this story, and even making me feel some sort of humanity to this animalistic and naturistic thing, such as the shark. But we all know it's a territorial beast. There's one thing that sort of prevents me from giving this a perfect score. I kind of wish it honed also into mob mentality. It sort of does that a little bit. I did like the red herring where those kids ended up using a shark floaty, and people thought, "Oh no, there's a shark." I don't know. These town folks they seem reasonable on the surface, but they're also a little bit stupid. I wish there was a little bit more mob mentality in this because I think it would have made this film total camp. There could have been so many more layers to explore here. I know some people think this movie is about class struggles. I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to give this a 4.5, like Taavi. I so appreciate this film. And I appreciate its legacy, to be honest. I remember whenever I said, I hope Spielberg's film, whenever we were talking about Sugarland, would make a splash, this certainly did. People were lining up at the cinema to see things. And like you were saying, Aidan, things were different back then. And I really hope eventually Spielberg holds true to cinematic values and doesn't slip into many problems that films are facing today, such as intense franchise devotion. But who knows? This is 4.5. I love this. It's a big step up for Steven Spielberg.
Oh yeah. Nice to hear that you enjoyed it as well, Clay. Very nice.
Yeah, definitely. A lot. I mean, yeah, it's one of those movies. Like, I don't know how much I can add to it. It feels like it's like one of those movies that has always existed. You know, like it almost feels like some natural landscape at this point. It's been analyzed and talked about and seen so many times.
Right.
Yeah. True.
You seem to give deeper analysis to Duel, which is surprising to me.
Well, I mean, I think part of that is that the premise of Duel is more unexplained and less like clear. So it's kind of that less is more thing. But I think this is a better movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Not to spoil our rankings, which we will eventually close off the series with the huge megasode ranking. Any closing thoughts you guys want to say on Steven Spielberg's career trajectory at this point?
Going up, up, up.
Oh yeah, just like Shania Twain said.
Yeah, like I'm very excited for what's coming. I actually haven't seen I think the next 2 films that's coming. So one of them is a classic. So not.
Am I the only one who's seen E.T. here?
No,
I
I've
haven't.
seen it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember you mentioned one of you guys mentioned that you've never seen it. So
Yeah, I've never seen it.
I'd be curious to like what episode will be our first time watches. This is my first time watch for Jaws, so you get to see a person reacting to this in real time. Pretty soon, whenever we do ET, you're going to see Aidan react to this in real time. And Taavi, what's going to be your real time experience?
The next one, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Nice.
Same for me. Yeah.
Have you seen it, Clay?
Nope.
So that's going to be our where nobody
Renew
has
across the
seen
board.
it.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks for the episode, and hope you had a good time listening this, and give your Jaws thoughts in the comments, and see you next time. Bye bye.
See you guys next time.
Bye, everyone.